That's it. Sick song by Noise. Wanted to shout that out because I forgot to last time.
Hey.
Up. And here we are, almost a month later. 4 weeks for sure.
It's been a little bit of a break, but that's just means that everyone will miss us more.
That's right. All right. So today we're going to talk about a few things. We'll talk about what we've got going on, what we've been up to.
Yeah, and we'll talk about a topic that I think is near and dear to both of our hearts, which is, I guess, why we chose to talk about it.
Heck yeah.
Because it would be weird to talk about something we didn't really care about.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in corporate. I can bullshit my way through stuff. That's fine. Let's hear what we have to say about like knitting techniques and how they interact with different environmental conditions. I guess I'll just kind of kick things off because I actually played a couple of games in the last. I was going to say the last week, but it's really been like more like the last month. But you know, it's the holidays; things get weird. And one of them was even a miniatures game. So after we were talking up Slammer last time, I've been chatting with a guy, Chris Nicole, about possibly taking on and doing an updated version of it for sometime next year. Because he's been wanting to kind of do something with it, but he also, I think, doesn't really want to like sit down and tear the whole thing apart. After you get to a point where like you've been working on it so much that like it's almost like more difficult than if you're just starting over. So we were doing a little refresher game, and we were trying to make it like as pick up as possible. So it was just told the kid to go grab some random miniatures. They came back with like some second edition 40k like Orcs and Gretchen. Some Imperial Guardsmen and a couple of old Warzone minis, and then we made little squads out of those, and they had a battle.
Nice.
So yeah, it was fun. It was nice to just do something that wasn't planned at all. We came up with like a little scenario that like I have these little 3D printed like fuel barrels, and they're like out of scale with everything I own. They're way too big for 15s, but they're like tiny for 28s. They're like the size of like a Space Marine's leg, so they're like tiny barrels. But so we set those up and we were like, okay, well, if you get up to those, you can like roll and see if there's like loot. But then it didn't matter because my orcs just got shot to pieces. But it was a good game. Then I played some solo, the original Squad Leader, the old Avalon Hill board game, and a little bit of the old War and Peace because I've been sitting forever. And good times for hat. Yeah, Squad Leader still holds up really well for anyone who stumbles on like a used copy in good condition with either unpunched or with all the stuff in it. It's still worth getting. War and Peace is a little more of a hard sell. It's not a bad game, but it definitely like shows his age a little bit more. Although if you're after like old school hex game and like grand Napoleonics, there's not that many options like for that specifically, and you can get it for often like $20. It's definitely worth that. Like it comes with a lot of scenarios, so if you're interested in that kind of thing, I would say it's a pretty good pick. But yeah, that was kind of otherwise I've just been working and dealing with life.
Life.
But you did some exciting stuff.
Yeah, went down to the United States of America, down to California. We hit up Disneyland. I prioritized stops to Barnes and Noble.
The legendary place.
Yeah, that's right. The first one I hit up was in Montana, Great Falls, and all they had was one copy of Blitz Bowl for about $50. I was like, well, I'm not really into the Blitz Bowl, so I'm going to give that one a pass.
Yeah.
But when we were in Santa Clarita on the way back after Disneyland, the Porsche dealership was on one side, the Barnes & Nobles was the other, so you knew that was where the good stuff was.
Yeah. That's a higher class of people.
Yeah. The hobby section, I think, was like a good eighth of the store at least. It wasn't a small store. It was pretty impressive. I saw a lot of stuff there. It looked really cool, like D&D 3D terrain. So you can set up rooms and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah. Which is pretty handy for wargamers as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's funny to see how much like board games of all kinds of like. I keep waiting for it to like start dropping off and people like turn to a different hobby, and it keeps going. So
Disneyland was cool,
Yeah.
People like it, and I can see why, but it's atrociously expensive. Not even just buying the tickets, but trying to eat. Don't bring your own food. Don't eat there.
Yeah, just do like the pigeons and just like pick up stuff that people dropped on the ground.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Have you ever seen a pigeon throw up from food poisoning? No, you have not.
Never. No,
exactly. They know what's up. Like it's just hot dog bun. It's been lying there for 10 minutes.
On Star Wars, the Star Wars section was really cool just to watch, like at all the weathering they do, because they always have like really cool weathering effects on all the Star Wars stuff to in, and yeah.
Yeah. You can learn a few things
that way. So I took some pictures of some droids and stuff.
Yeah. So I bet your kid was ecstatic.
Yeah, all the kids. We went with 2 other families. And
okay, that's cool.
A group of 4 girls, and
yeah. So I bet they had a wonderful time.
Yeah, I found my physical limitations though. Dark rides, I can't do.
Yeah. I'm kind of a wuss when it comes to rides, anyway. Like, I don't do that well with heights, so whenever we go to like a amusement park or a fair that has rides or something, I'm down on the ground and just munching on a hot dog while the kid will go. And my wife will go sometimes, but it's really more the kids thing. So
I committed myself to doing as much as I could physically, but after the Guardians of the Galaxy, which was the Tower of Terror, which is they put you in a dark elevator and they throw you up and down for a while.
Oh, okay. I think that's like how
I nearly had a heart failure, like legitimately. My heart was swollen 3 days afterwards.
I think that's like how we used to torture like suspected KGB agents or something.
Yeah, exactly. Disneyland.
Now you can pay for it. It's also like physical strenuous just from like all the walking around you do. Like it's not a small place.
No. Our friend kept track. She said we did 25,000 the first day and 30,000 steps the next.
Wow. So you're good.
And I didn't make it to day 3, unfortunately. I got
yeah. But you're fine. Like you don't have to walk again until like the 3rd of January.
That's right.
So, like you're covered.
I'm covered. But yeah, so overall, a lot of fun.
That sounds lovely. And you got to eat some American candy.
Yeah, that was the best part.
That is the good stuff. Yeah, I don't have any candies tonight. Tonight I made this isn't like a sponsored post, although I would totally sponsor these guys, but we were looking for like we don't drink alcohol like a lot, but we will occasionally buy something to have a drink. And last night, because we were gearing up for, doing Thanksgiving and all that stuff, so like, you know what, it would be nice to like sit and watch stuff and have a drink. So we got this like berry flavored vodka. I think the brand is called Truly or something. I don't know if it's like a local thing or what it is, but it was like really good. Like a lot of times when you buy flavored vodka, it kind of doesn't taste like much of anything. Like it's like the merest hint of whatever it's supposed to be, banana or apple, or I don't think they have banana vodka. Maybe they do. But this was like, we mixed it with Sprite and it legit tasted like a berry like Sprite. It was so good.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it was really good. I had to kind of I was like, man, I could have like 5 of these. And then I would not wish I had done that.
Yeah, it's not Christmas yet.
No, and we had to clean and stuff today. So we're having a friend over. Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna friend over, watch MST3K, and also watch Champions League. So it'll be fun and eat turkey.
I don't have too much on the gaming front. I honestly cannot remember if I played any games before I left, but I'm pretty sure I have.
Games happened.
Yeah. Since I got back, I played one game of the new Underworlds.
Oh.
So they have a new edition of Underworlds, and I played that.
Okay.
And I got stomped.
Notably different?
The board was smaller. Things were faster because the board was smaller.
Yeah. That makes sense.
They only have 2 decks, so it's very easy to have a balance because there's only 2 decks to play.
Yeah.
So one person has to play one style, the other person has to play the other style, and that's what you do. You got no options.
All right. Well, that's how you fix all the balance issues.
That's right. Just get rid of all the variables.
Yeah. Just everyone plays orcs. So the topic for the night, we're going to talk about 15mm miniatures. And I guess mostly 15mm sci-fi, but honestly, it kind of like, it's all the same. It's all the thing. We're all miniatures here.
Yeah. If you believe in Stargate, you can believe in anything.
That is true. I did watch some SG1 last week. It was fun. Yeah. It was nice to turn on a TV show and then just like pick up some random episodes in the middle of like season 4 or whatever, and it didn't matter because like they don't really fit together that much anyway.
Awesome.
So I guess to kick things off, when did you because most people don't start with 15s, usually start with like Warhammer or like D&D minis or something else. It's like 25 or 28 or 109 or whatever they are now. So when did you discover 15mm minis, or how did you discover?
Well, it started with the Robotech Kickstarter because it was in 6mm, and I knew Battletech was in 6mm. So I'm like, this scale is really cool. What other kind of scales are out there? Because I knew about 28mm. And I'm like, I don't know why you'd ever want a scale that isn't 28mm or 6mm.
Yeah.
Like 15mm is some weird compromise. Like, it's kind of useless. But the more I looked at it, especially when you finally see the miniatures like up close, you see little 15 millimeter dudes and stuff. Like, yeah, actually not. So I think that's probably maybe 2015.
Yeah, I think that's actually smaller miniatures in general, like photograph really badly, especially if they're unpainted. And like a lot of, if we're being honest, it's better now, but like a lot of manufacturers' sites are not exactly showing the goods in like the best light. I don't actually remember where I saw they existed, but I remember after we had moved to the States, and I didn't bring any of I brought my RPG books and a couple of rule books, but I didn't bring any miniatures with me. And then when I had to essentially like build like stuff again, I was kind of casting about, and like I had come from 40K and Warzone, the 28 mil stuff. We had played some 172 plastic stuff, but it was hard to get in Denmark. I'm sure there are places we could, but in the little town I lived in, there was like you could get like a couple of boxes of World War II stuff, and that was kind of it. So I was looking for stuff that was like cheaper than buying 28 millimeter. Like I wanted to do Russian Civil War at the time, which isn't well covered in 28 anyway. There's some, but I didn't want to pay like $3, whatever it was. At the time, it was probably more like $2 per figure. And I remember I had stumbled across, I think they were called minifigs, and they're not around anymore, but I think their ranges got taken over by somebody else, but they had a range of 50 millimeter World War I figures. At the time, they were quite cheap. And I remember like actually calling the company on the phone and asking about the figures, and he talked about how great they were. So I bought some, and they were okay. They're not bad. They weren't.
As long as like that one pose, you're good.
Well, so that was the thing, because there was like, I think I got 3 packs. There was like a Russian pack that was literally all one pose, but like 3 officers. There was like 21 guys and 3 officers. And then there was Russians in greatcoats, which were all one pose with the same 3 officers at the other pack. So they weren't wearing greatcoats. And then there was an American pack that was like really cool with like a bunch of poses. That was really good. So yeah, that was like the prestige one. But then I just really fell in love with them. I was like, oh, they have like enough detail, you can kind of tell them apart. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, in that case, I want to try this with sci-fi because that just seems really cool. And then from there, it was just... So at first, it was absolutely just like a question of the cost. Like these guys were, at the time, maybe 25, 30 cents per figure, like, which is a while ago, because now like some of them are fucking like almost $1 per figure.
Yeah.
Which is still cheaper than other stuff, but like the cost, that was why I ended up getting 20 millimeter for World War II for larger scale, because the cost is almost the same now. But what it really made me realize, though, once I started playing games with them, was the cost is only one part. If you play with a lot of tanks and stuff, the cost is like a bigger part, because you're still paying like $10, $12 for a 50 millimeter tank. If you're trying to do tank heavy stuff in like 28, you're paying a lot more. And they're competitive too against like 172 like model kits or some of the easy build kits you can get for like World War II and stuff. So like for tank heavy games, yeah, the cost is absolutely a big factor. For infantry, they're still cheaper, but not by like, I don't know. Like I used to have this thing I would post when people were saying that like Wargaming was too expensive, which was you could get like a full platoon of infantry in 50 millimeter with like a couple of vehicles for under $50, and that would be an army in a lot of games. And that's still basically true, but it's definitely like, I don't think the cost is actually, I think people can kind of oversell that a little bit, because a lot of people I think will look at it and say, okay, well, if I'm only building a platoon for a game, like there's, even if I buy them at 28, there's only like so much I'm going to buy, right? Like if I'm building 3 squads and I want like 2 tanks and I want a little extra stuff just so I can swap out, right? So I buy like a couple extra heroes, but like at some point, if that's your level of game, you're just going to run into a cap you're going to spend on it. And if that cap is 300 instead of like 80, I think that's like within the range of what a lot of people would spend on an army. The thing that really stood out for me was space. Not really so much on the shelf, because you can always pack things, but like especially when you start putting like vehicles on the board, that the amount of space you don't really. If you're coming from 28s, which most people will be, we were used to playing 40K on probably a 3x4 table most of the time. Sort of typical, like, not a little more than a kitchen table, but like a smaller dining table is kind of what we usually have. And you get used to your army takes up like most of that table, most of the side of the table. But when you set up the same amount of stuff in 15 millimeter, it literally like shrinks to like you can deploy in like a little corner of the table. Like when I wrote No End in Sight, the test army was a Soviet like motor rifle platoon with 3 squats, 3 BMPs, like transports, and 2 tanks. So 5 vehicles, 3 squads, all, and that was on a 2x2 foot table, and it was round. It was the worst gaming table humanity has ever seen. It literally did not have corners, but it was 2 feet across. It was fucking awful. But that still fit on that table against like a West German equivalent with like 4 or 5 vehicles and 3 squads. And that was where I really started realizing that 15mm had this whole potential for having stuff that, because on a table like that, if you play in 28, which I did at the time, because that was the table I had at our old apartment, you literally could play like 2 squads and 2 characters, and you would be already start to like everything was bumping into each other. And in 15, you could have this whole thing. You didn't have a lot of movement still, because it's still like barely a 2-foot table, but it would fit, and you could have a little space, and it would, yeah, it was just, that's where I really kind of realized how powerful 15mm could be. Because before then we had mostly played Stargrunt 2, which we did in 15, but that was basically all infantry. So we got the cheapness of it. We didn't really get kind of the effect of what you can do.
Yeah, I know that when I played Warhammer in 3rd edition, you always have like a few squads of dudes, maybe some bikes and some tanks. If you're like a Space Marine player, a couple tanks.
Yeah.
And it takes up a lot of real estate, because the other bro is going to have one too. And then, yeah, when you start looking at 15mm for the amount of real estate it takes up on the table, it's like you could have just as much fun playing with that amount of stuff in half the size.
No, exactly.
And you have a lot more room to maneuver and hide and go up in places.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a lot better.
And also, once you start realizing, like, it's another thing, like scaling the terrain down, I don't think until you see it, you quite get it. Because a lot of times on a 28mm table, you might say like, okay, we're going to fight over this like space colony, and you have like 2 buildings on the table. But when it's all scaled down to, because it sounds like it's only half the size, but that's not really like how, I'm not a math dimension person, but it's less. It's like a quarter of the size, really. So you could have like 6 or 7 buildings on the table, and suddenly it looks like a real place. Like, and it's funny because like 6mm players will say the same thing. Like, okay, we can have like 30 buildings, which is totally true. But there's like an element to like the illusion of a gaming table. Like 2 buildings just looks like 2 buildings. Like 6 of them looks like a place, I think. That's like, at some point your brain starts like filling it in and it feels more real. Or if you want to have like I buy a lot of like fish tank rock formations. I use like plastic or resin or something. You can get them at like pet stores. Because they always look like weird alien. They look like Star Trek like set design. So we have a whole bunch of those, and they look really cool with 15mm figures next to them, because like they tower over. They're these like big imposing rock formation. You can put a pile of them on the table. It just looks really cool. So there's a lot you can kind of do, both in terms of like ambition and scope, and like without really going that crazy with like what you're buying and how much you're getting, because like a lot of those building kits and stuff are like really cheap to get too. And there's like so many like MDF kits and stuff like that, which I don't know if you're into the MDF stuff for terrain or models.
I'm not really into terrain. I try to be. I have a lot of unbuilt terrain, but I just never can get around to doing it. I like it when it's pre-painted and built, and you can just slap it on the table. So like aquarium stuff would be perfect.
Yeah, no, they look great. Just go to like a PetSmart or Canadian equivalent, find the aquarium section. They have so much. You can also get like, because they always have like plastic.
That's America.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys have pets up there. So.
Oh yeah, it's just, I don't know why, but it's not cheap. You might as well just buy the Gale Force 9 stuff at that point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because these are, a lot of times you can get these for like, I don't know, like $8-10 or so. You can also get it from Amazon from like suspicious like Chinese sellers.
Oh yeah.
Which is probably full of lead paint, but like just don't eat it, I guess.
Yeah.
Kids, don't eat your terrain.
Don't eat it.
Don't do it. But yeah, so like that's really like the bigger, like you can still like play like little skirmish games. I know people who play like 5 Parsecs in 15mm, and they have like 5 dudes on the table, and you can like shrink it down and play on like a little table, which is also like there's just, it scales like really well with up and down, I think. And that was really the thing that like sold me on the scale. For a long time I just played 15mm. That was it. The other thing is, especially for sci-fi, there's like you can play sci-fi on any scale, but in like 10 millimeter, there's a couple of companies that will do it, but you're a little more limited. Especially if you want to be able to like mix and match on different companies and have some different styles and stuff. Like 20 millimeter, I don't even know if that's a thing in sci-fi. I'm sure it's out there. It must exist, but like it's barely true.
I've
25.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
Most sci-fi you might see be like zombies.
Yeah. I'm sure there's
Stalker,
something in like the UK or something, because 20 millimeter is like such a UK thing. True 25 millimeter, there's like Ground Zero Games, and that's kind of it. And I don't think.
Well, I bet a regular has something, honestly. A regular always has something.
That is true. I think they discontinued their 6 millimeter ranges now. So end of an era.
No more little lumps of stuff.
Yeah. But like 28 has like probably the widest range of sci-fi for like infantry and models, although a lot of it's like Warhammer knockoff stuff. Then I think 15 might be just from, because there's a lot of, there's like the big ones like Kurasan, Alternative Armies, all that stuff. Has a lot of variety, but like for vehicles, I would actually not be surprised if 15 millimeter sci-fi did not have more model or tank kits and vehicle kits than any other scale of sci-fi.
Yeah, at least for wargaming. Well, no, sci-fi definitely. And wargaming in general, it's got to be close.
It could still be the case for like historical wargaming in general, although you're competing with like all the model kit builders. In that case, maybe that's dicey, but yeah, pretty definitely for sci-fi. Like there's just even like Brigade alone, I think might have more vehicles than like a lot of others combined.
When I think Brigade, I always think 6 millimeter.
They have a bunch of stuff.
Chris O'Haver just mentioned 3D printing unlocked 10 millimeter. That's something I do want to touch on later for 15 millimeter as well.
Yeah, 100%. So print is one of the things that's almost like a whole separate and it looks like, because for a while there was this thing where like people would say you could buy like the STLs and rescale them, or print them different scales, but it sometimes didn't work very well. But it seems now like more and more people making them have figured out how to like, there's like certain, I don't know about it, this is just what people told me, but you kind of have to take account of if you want to scale it when you're making it. So if you build for it up front, from what I understand, it'll print in like multiple scales and it'll work pretty well. It's like what kind of details you can include and stuff like that. But yeah, and I wonder, well, so the other thing is, because sci-fi gaming is so locked into one model per stand or one model per base, individual figures, because that's just how it is. There are a couple games that are stand based, but it's like so rare. Whereas for 10 millimeter, it's kind of the other way around. I think most 10 millimeter gamers go into it assuming you're going to make stands. And then if you like I play 10 millimeter individually, but that's like an unusual thing. And I also have them based on stands for, a different game. Which I guess brings to the other part of the 15 millimeter like discussion, which is, because it's not really like rules can be any scale, obviously, but that's only kind of true, I think. Like, I think some games, like if you're playing a game that has, like if you're playing Inquisitor, there's probably a reason that people aren't playing Inquisitor in 15 millimeter. Because, if you're only building 4 characters and you're supposed to like kit bash each of them, you're not really going to do that in 15s, For a while, like Starground 2 was kind of like the classic one that was like, because Ground Zero Games sold a 50 millimeter line. And it fit in that kind of like buy 3 bags of infantry and buy like 2 vehicles and you have an army kind of thing, which fit like very well. And Grunts, I guess, was any size, but it felt like most people played it around that, like a platoon or a bit of like 2 platoons. But you have like 5, 6, 7 units, but not too much above that. When I did Fast and Dirty, it was aimed at platoons as well. Although when I wrote it, I didn't know what 50 millimeter was yet. That game was playtested entirely with a box of Cadian shock troops and a friend of mine's like Warzone minis, his capital army. So I actually still have a couple of those Cadians, but there's only like 5 or 6 of them left now.
Oh,
yeah, they've like every time I've ducked them out of the box, like 1 or 2 of them have like gone AWOL.
Cat trophies.
Yeah. There's like 1 sniper model that I use with them that I do not know where he came from. He's not a Warzone guy, and I don't know what else it could have been at the time. Torben says people don't play Inquisitor in 50 millimeter because they're cowards. That is goddamn right, sir.
It is 100%. Cowards, all of them.
But so I always wonder if people they don't see a game that promotes this is for 15 millimeter sci-fi, or if that really matters to people. Are the people who buy 15 mil, or they're already kind of used to DIYing it anyway? So do they just not
Well, I think it's kind of like the old. Well, I was talking to my daughter about this the other day. Actually, I was playing some Voodoo glow skulls first thing in the morning. because I felt like getting pumped up. And she's like, wow, this music really pumps me up. I'm like, yeah, it does. It's Voodoo glow skulls. Banging ska.
Yeah.
And I was talking about how in the old days, you wouldn't just know about Voodoo glow skulls. You'd have to know somebody who knew about Voodoo glow skulls, or take a risk in some sort of record store that might have taken a risk buying some albums.
Yeah.
You know, just to have like an alternative section. So it's risk takers, I think, are the biggest proponents for 15 millimeter, even still to this day.
Yeah, I think there's a general feeling. That was on back when Google Plus was the thing. There was a 15 millimeter group, and it was very much like you saw way more variety of like rules people were playing. Like at the time, grunge was like that was probably half of them. Like that was kind of the unifying point. But there was definitely a much stronger feeling of kind of like DIY, like people, because you're gonna get people who like, okay, if I'm by definition not buying the models that this game intended me to use, or the rules don't intend me to use a specific model anyway, I can get like anything I want. So I might have, some, I don't know, Darkest Star, some Rebel Minis, some like D&D monster that I'm using, even though it's out of scale, some Vietnam era, models that I'm using and repainting. So I think that kind of lends itself to like a very particular, like if you're already making those decisions about like, I'm going to have an army that is exactly like this, maybe that also just goes with the rules. Like, you're going to get people who kind of like look for something a little bit different. And they're playing stuff that aren't like real popular or common. One thing I want to do in the next year, the PlayStations have been kind of hammering away at it, is a game called Slam. I don't remember what the abbreviation was for, but the idea will be that it'll have like be geared specifically for 15s, so kind of support like more vehicles on the table, stuff like that, but also be something that could be put out and people can do up stats for like specific models from specific manufacturers. I think I've mentioned it before.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
To provide kind of a rallying point for 15 millimeter sci-fi again, because grunts, I guess, is still out there, but like I don't see people talking about it anymore. Stargrunt is long gone. People don't play Fast and Dirty anymore. So a lot of it is like people who are like, oh, can I play 40K in 15 millimeter? Like, yeah, you can, but like, have you considered trying something different?
Something funner.
Like, go live a little. Like, you can do anything. Like, it's like you quit like eating Snickers and then you just buy like a smaller Snickers. Like, come on, man. So yeah, I guess like, what's your thought? Like, what drew you? What was like did you have like a moment of like, oh, I get it now for 15s, or was it just like a natural thing?
I think mostly I just ended up liking like the Team Yankee and Flames of War stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've always wanted to find something that kind of gears in towards that scale of tank plus infantry. Yeah. Because in 6 millimeter, the infantry kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I like painting it well enough, but you never really get satisfaction. You have to create the stands, and you have to pick up the stands, and they're hard to pick up sometimes. And
yeah, you got to pick up by the model, or
sometimes you break them. You just push them down, and they break off the base. Frustrating.
You too have purchased GHQ infantry.
The worst
spindly little fuckers.
Yeah. I mean, I know Michael Stockin was the pioneer of playing single base 6 millimeter miniatures in game, which is a really cool concept, but it's a little bit too hardcore for me.
So it's on my list of things I want to do. Just buy like 2 bags of. The problem is a lot of times when you buy 6 mil, what you're getting is like a bag of 30 of like this squad, and that's not what I want. I want a bag of like 15 different guys. But yes, 6 millimeter skirmish is something I may just do it for like World War II or something, so then I can just buy some basic stuff and not worry about it.
I could talk about 6 millimeter all day, but I don't think that's what we're here for. We're here for 15. So
yes, you're gonna have to wait for a different episode when we talk about that.
That's right.
So maybe we'll do that when I actually do that project.
So for me, it's the balance. That's what draws me most, is because you can single base and it looks good. You can multi base and it looks good, and they both look appropriate as well, I feel.
Yeah. One of the big surprises was that Now, if you have bad vision, this may not apply. So just bear that in mind. Although you can still get there with like being clever with your paint jobs and stuff. But they are detailed enough, especially nowadays, because the sculpting quality has like jumped a lot in like 20 years. That you can play them individually and tell them apart. You can see like who's who and what weapons they got and stuff. Although, yes, sometimes like being a little, there's like the old trick of like painting everything a little brighter than you would normally, and it'll stand out more. And yeah, you can put them on stands, and it's not like super expensive either. If you're paying, like if you're playing a sci-fi game that uses stands, odds are you're not going to have that many on the table. So if you're putting like 2 or 3 figures on each stand, you're not. Yes, the cost does go up a little bit, but those stands are still not more than like $1 or so, maybe $2 per stand. And that's what you would be paying 28 anyway.
I think with 15 millimeter, the trick isn't really the paint job; it's the basing. You really got to think about your basing.
Yeah,
that's you can't just slap down some sand and dry brush it and call it a day and expect it's going to look good, or do the static grass mess, which I've seen. Like you even see like on like manufacturers' websites, they'll show you, oh, like here's our gravel basing with static grass just flown around everywhere,
like climbing over massive boulders, like in their size.
Awful. You got to think about the basing. I think that's the biggest part for 15 millimeter.
The thing I see a lot of people get hung up on and kind of be intimidated by is because they think they have to paint them as 28s. And you don't, but also like some of them are sharp enough that you kind of can. Like a lot of, if you're about like Curaçao stuff, some of that stuff is like sharp enough and detailed enough that you can kind of treat them like little 28s. But you can also, it's a great scale for somebody like me who is like shit at painting and mostly just wants to like get colors on a unit so it looks okay. Because you can
Slap
paint,
chop
like,
is your friend.
Yeah, like you can get, or just like the basic like block colors plus a wash and you're done. Like it'll still look fine. Like they will look okay on the table. So it has a lot to commend in that sense. Like tanks, you have to put a little more, and like painting big flat armor surfaces is like its own challenge, right?
I think tanks are easier, honestly.
That's fair.
I think tanks are the easiest thing to paint. Like 15 millimeter tanks, or like painting like 28 millimeter skeletons. You can just do it all day long. This is no challenge.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe we need a Dave's paint tips episode. So I could learn something. But yeah, so I think now I will say I don't think obviously nothing is like perfect, except for this like 0 sugar cherry Coke, which is actually pretty close to perfect.
Legendary.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's have some humility, because I'm sure like this is like 100% like toxic chemicals. I'm sure, so I'm sure they can come up with one that's like equally tasty but not toxic. But there are a couple of drawbacks to 15s that are worth, if people are considering jumping in. I think the advantages well outweigh them, but one, especially for some older ranges, you can sometimes get like pretty lackluster like variety of poses in packs. Like it's not unusual. If you buy like Peter Pig or something for historical, you usually get like 3 poses in each pack, which is fine for 8 figures, but if you're buying a whole bunch of them, you get a lot of those 3 guys, right? And sometimes the poses can be a little more, well, I don't know. I was going to say they can be a little more like pedestrian because you get a lot of just guys standing with a rifle. But I feel like that's probably the case in other scales.
Yeah, they're very plastic soldier.
Yeah, it's rare to get like a guy who's crouching or a guy. You can get that stuff, but it's just you don't get as much of it. So for historicals, that can be remedied some because you just, as long as you can find 2 companies that are like pretty compatible in size, because all 15s are not born equal. You can obviously just pile like more guys on it. That will be fine. But yeah, so a little post variety can be an issue. And like I said, if you don't have super great vision, sometimes distinguishing, if you play a game where like if you're playing 40K, where like your squad leader has a different weapon and there's like 2 different weapon guys in the squad and all this stuff, you may want to either account for that, or at least like it can't hurt. So like you can mark the bases or paint them a little different, or paint the weapons like a very noticeable color or something, because otherwise, yeah, it can be. I remember my GCG 15s because they have like usually a lot of the infantry packs have like 2 support weapons in the pack, and I just painted them in like gunmetal, just like the rifles, and then it was like You have to like squint at the peer
What?
to find out who has the whatever the gun it is, a little plasma gun or something. So those are like the main drawbacks. Honestly, I mean, it used to be that 15s could be kind of rough and not all that detailed, but I feel like that hasn't really been true for years now. Like, yeah, if you're coming off like the super detail, plastics you get now for Warhammer, that there's a different like level to it. But I also feel like that could actually encourage people to like start painting, because I think a lot of people can also be intimidated by like having to paint like a Pegasus rider with like 2,000 individual feathers on the wings or whatever. So I think the figures being smaller and kind of lending itself to like you're painting squads instead of just guys could encourage people to get going on well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's something fun to like paint up an army, like it looks like an army. It's it's the illusion thing again. Like if you paint 5 guys, you paint 5 guys. But if you painted like a whole army, like 40 guys and 3 tanks, that looks like a real thing. Like if you look at a news broadcast from somewhere, like that's what you see is like that number of guys. So it has like a whole another level of like, it's not really realism, but like it feels like.
Yeah, it has more spectacle to it.
Yeah. Skis says kit bashing is drawback. And this is true. For infantry, it's very true, unless I guess you can do it a little bit with green stuff, but like that sounds miserable. Tank kit bashing is probably better, but there's so few plastic vehicle kits that if you want to like kit bash and modify figures, you're gonna be in for like a bad time.
Just to touch on Torben's other comment, Wildfire was the pinnacle of basing for 15mm. I'm not sure what Wildfire is, but I bet you know.
I actually have no idea. So
Torben, you stumped us.
Yeah, some jibber jabber he made up. 2 figures to a base, 3 bases to a squad. That does sound pretty good.
Adds up.
Yeah, so that's 6 guys. I had to count.
I wouldn't mind talking about what I think are disadvantages for 15mm. Mostly it's industry based, because like I picked up these guys after the game of Underworlds yesterday. It's going to be hard to see on the sprue, but this is a Wargames Atlantic British World War I troops.
Hey,
you got a ton of variety here. Like the sprue was, they sold it as a single sprue and was like, I think it was $8 Canadian, and you get 5 guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have that.
Like ridiculously cheap, and just the sheer amount of variety and bang for your buck you get now out of a lot of plastic kits and 28mm.
Yes,
makes looking at all those little manufacturers online with their little shitty metal miniatures that no one wants to paint anymore. No one wants to paint metal.
Yeah,
you have to love metal to want to paint metal.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the people who really love metal figures are usually after like Old Hammer stuff or Ralpartha stuff like that. Yeah, so that is definitely a drawback.
And the other one, just for the manufacturers too, is what everyone's been saying is 3D printing. I took a Hero Forge guy, like I made up a little Hero Forge guy. Yeah. And I got old Agoctopus to print them up for me. So he printed up one that was like a very heroic 32mm, like the guys at Chonker.
Yeah.
But he shrunk it down to 15mm, and it scales perfectly with all the Battlefront. And he looks great.
Yeah.
It's a great looking little 15mm, full of variety, pose. When you look at him after he was like painted up with like a little bit of details dry brushed on, like you could perfectly tell what he is.
Yeah.
Versus like a lot of those metal ones that are, a little lackluster in detail because of their age and manufacturing techniques.
Yeah.
And they're not cheap, unfortunately, anymore.
So this is actually one of the things that I think, I know people complained about the Battlefront style of figures for their World War II stuff, but I actually think they're because they were kind of chunky for 50s.
Lantern jaws.
Yeah, they all had like they were marked like big arms and stuff, but it made them very like distinct. They paint up like really well. They pop out especially paint them a little brighter. And I really like them. I had a lot of Battlefront when I used to play World War II and 15. But I think they kind of got like how to make those pop and like look more attractive, look more fun. Torben says a lack of definition on what 15mm figures is. That is absolutely true.
That's
the case in historicals as well. Like I have some Kurasan World War I British that are a full head taller than like Peter Pig figures. They just don't fit together. Like if you buy, I think Blue Moon is advertised as 18s, and they definitely are. They're like way taller and chunkier.
But these guys here, like I know for sure, this rifle barrel is about the same width as the stock on a lot of 15mm guns.
Mm.
Like super thick.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I think Darkest Star has a tendency on his vehicles that they have very sort of realistic gun barrels, which make them like really spindly and thin. Whereas especially if you're going to handle them, you obviously want stuff that's a little chunkier just so it's not like breaking. That was one of the things I liked with those old like Angel Barracks 6mm figures, that they were just little chunks. They're like unbreakable. Not like getting the little GHQ guys. They're like, they look really nice and detailed, but they're also like their limbs are basically like sprue, like Flash.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think but I think that's like a worthwhile thing to like distinguish out, because there's like advantages and drawbacks that are like on the gaming table, and there's advantages and drawbacks to like the product, like the physical thing you're purchasing. And I think on the product side, 15s have more disadvantages, or areas where I wouldn't even say I'm going to say it's not necessarily that 15s in metal are like bad. It's just that other things have like gained, like, because if you go back to, 10, 15 years, I mean, plastic kits were still like advancing fast, but they were still like behind what they are now. You go back 20 years, like plastics were like not great, but now like they're so good and they're like the standard now, and people are used to being able to mix and match. So you see a lot of people buy like 4 different sprues or 4 different boxes because they're kit bashing something for like, project. So in a way, like you can get that sort of like unique army that nobody else has by doing it that way. And that's the thing you won't get with 15s on the infantry side. I think this is also, there's so few like sci-fi games that are like really like tank heavy, which I think is, if I had to guess, I would assume it's because they're played in 28 mostly, and you're going to have a hard time getting people to go out and buy like 5 like tanks for, $60 a pop.
A metal tank is a weapon in itself. It's a solid chunk of metal. I mean, the price is a big factor, I think. A lot of the sculpts are pretty old now. So I bought it like a Ground Zero Games, like some sort of alien style infantry transport. So I had a little gun barrel on top and stuff. And, it's pretty rough. That sculpt definitely looks like it's about 30 years old.
I've noticed that a lot of their hover vehicles are like really old. They don't look very good. They have a bunch of newer ones, like the sort of crab walkers and stuff that are much sharper. But yeah, there's definitely, you're going to have to kind of look around for that. It's like you get I used to have
people just need to tell you basically, like it's going to be the punk rock situation. Like, does a brigade have better metal sculpts for vehicles? That's where you want to go. Don't go for the G.
Yeah, unless you're like, what you're getting. Like I used to have a pile of the laser burn minis, and they were, so they were really good quality when they came out, and they still have a lot of characters. It's one of the places where you can get lots of like adventures and weird character types, but they're also like definitely kind of rough compared to like what Kurasan is putting out now, which is like really like sharp, and or if you've seen like Eureka, it's like 15s, and they're like laser sharp, their castings. So yeah, there's definitely, especially for if you put a lot of priority on like the physical items themselves, like I guess what's called the product, which sounds kind of corporate. There's definitely more like drawbacks there. But it also depends on the manufacturer. Like there are definitely just differences between like the quality of what you get. Like if you go buy GCG stuff, like some of those figures have been literally like around for like 30 years, and some are like brand. Like he does redo them now and again, so you can look for stuff that's been redone or have been added later. Whereas if you're buying like Kurasan, all of that stuff is like pretty new because he just has been around that long. And for some companies, it's like a mix. But it's also hard to tell sometimes on the website because like is that sometimes the photography of minis are just like bad.
Slowly, Ground Zero Games has been getting better, though. I mean, you can kind of tell now what you're buying.
Yeah, well, it's even worse. This is actually worse for 6mm, where they take like a little like strip of figures in the pure metal, sometimes not even like cleaned, and just like zoom in the camera, and they're just like little glowy blobs.
Yeah,
it's like, I can't believe you're selling anything with that. Like I wouldn't buy them, and I know they look fine in person, So I think that it's also, especially for people who are coming from 28s, which statistically, if you start minis gaming, you're not going to go out and look for 15s unless you already know like some weirdos who are into it. So I think there's a hump to get over, but again, some of it might be like you're just going into it expecting. It's like when people move from 40K and they find another game, but then it turns out that game is not literally perfect in every way and also better than 40K. Like, you know, so I think some of it is you have to kind of, if you're switching to 15s or you look to branch out or you just want to try them, is look at like what is 15 millimeter like on its own, and how do I get more out of it? Like, I saw a blog post a while ago. It was a guy who was kind of talking about a similar thing. This was for historicals, not sci-fi, but I think it works anyway. We're saying that compared to buying like bolt action for figures or stuff like that, 50 millimeter World War II, the infantry stuff doesn't look as good. The tanks are better, but they also like they're not as detailed as like a 20 millimeter tank kit. But when you put like a whole French village with farms and trees and fields and stuff on the table, like you're getting this aggregate effect of like this table is so much cooler than a 28 millimeter table because you can have all this stuff on there that you couldn't.
And especially if you go in bolt action, you're not loading the table up like you do in Flames of War.
Yeah,
tanks upon tanks upon tanks.
Yeah, that is almost like the opposite of where like just because it does let you put like 30 tanks shoulder or like track to track, maybe don't do that.
The parking lot.
Yeah, that's like but you know, so you can take some of the drawbacks and outweigh them or balance them by looking at some of the things that it will let you do that you couldn't do before. Like if you want to fight like a giant battle with a bunch of robots and cyber tank or hover tanks and stuff and build like a whole spaceport, you can totally do that in 15s and it'll really work, and it won't eat up, like you don't have to play on a 6x8 foot table. So I think you just have to like offset a little bit. I think that's where the rules thing comes in, because I think a lot of people aren't necessarily like looking at the rules first, because you know, maybe you're just looking to build some new models, or we're used to getting the models and the rules just kind of follow. But I think for 15s, you do have to consider it a little bit. Like if you're playing a game that is mostly just like a couple individual characters, that's more of an acquired thing. I like 15 millimeter like skirmish, but I could see why some people would kind of just find it fiddly and irritating, you know? Whereas if you're playing a game where there's a little more going on, like if you take the typical 40K game, but do it in 15 millimeter or like a similar size, not necessarily 40K, like that suddenly starts to make a lot of sense, because now you do benefit from like your table to doubled in size. And you can have more terrain and you can do all these things. So I think maybe just being a little more conscious about the game you're playing and whether is this the best choice for this game? You know? And also, like, are you looking? This is always like the scale issue, especially if you want to play multiple scales. Like, how much of your terrain is like going to transfer over? Yeah, you know, that may not. I mean, sometimes I will absolutely admit I put like 50 millimeter like buildings on when playing Warhammer stuff.
It's just the tiny buildings.
Yeah. Like, all right, you know, the doors are up to his ankles, but whatever. They're just like the planet of little people.
I feel. If you have a renaissance for 15 millimeter, like you did for 10 millimeter, so people wanted to play, say, War Master. You can't get the models for War Master anymore. So places like Forest Dragon started coming out, where they just make 3D models for War Master. Yeah. So you can buy them, you print them up, you put them on their little rank and flank bases, and you can go. I think you kind of need something like that for 15 millimeter if you wanted to jump back off again. So you have the game that people want to play. Yeah. And the 3D printing can accelerate the industry, because now there's going to be plastic ranges of 10 millimeter again, because it became popular enough that people saw a market.
Yeah, well, and 15 millimeter sci-fi had its renaissance, and then it's kind of overdue for another one.
Yeah, because this the 3D printing era. It was just right before.
It was just before that, and it was kind of at a time when like there was also like a bit of melees around like 40K, because it was kind of in that like 6th, 7th edition era where people were the game was starting to creak a little bit and needed rebooted pretty badly. So there was like a lot of people who were kind of drifted off. They still wanted to play sci-fi, but they were ready to play something different. And you got a bunch of companies popping up. You know, like a lot of Curisan kind of comes around that era. And yeah, like but there were kind of like at the time I was hanging out in like TMP where a lot of that stuff was kind of bubbling up. And there was kind of the 3 games that people usually brought up was like Stargrunt 2, Grunge was like brand new at the time. And then Fast and Dirty, which had been kind of just dormant for a while, but people would still bring it up and like talk about it. Which is funny because like I said, I never wrote that game for 15 millimeter, but those people kind of took to it because it was a game that was upfront like Stargrunt was. So you could just kind of use whatever. So there was kind of like, there were a couple of games that could kind of like, people could unify around like, okay, if I'm playing this, here's something that I know will work well because people are doing this. And then a bunch of companies popped up and started making stuff. That's also when like the MDF like terrain explosion hit, where suddenly everyone was churning out like ruins and space colony buildings and MDF, and everyone's like hobby room smelled like burnt wood. As a result, I can't stand that smell. I love MDF terrain because you can get some really cool cheap stuff, but it smells like shit. But then like things like after a while, it just kind of like people are still playing it in 15, but like it's just it dropped quite a bit, and it's hard to get a gauge now on like if there's even like is there like a rallying point everyone has, or is that just not a case? Like everyone's just doing their own thing.
Yeah, I think that's what we need. We need the game, the 3D printers, and then the plastics.
I think so.
Gain up the momentum again.
And maybe the 3D printing will just cover, and you won't need the plastics after all. That's like true. Maybe it gets to that point, you know, because it's getting like easier and easier to get like stuff printed for you, or like there are services you can go through and stuff. So maybe the plastic thing just gets sidestepped. The other problem is that there are like 15 millimeter plastic sets. Like Plastic Soldier Company has some for like World War II, but they're not like real good. Like a lot of them are like very spindly and kind of obnoxious.
Depends on the era too. They improved. They became more Battlefront-ish as the later ones came out. So the initial American and German, especially infantry, are like super. But then by the end, they got super chunky. So
that's what you need to do. Because I remember getting one of them. I forget what set it was, but they had like multi-part. Like some of the machine gunners were multi-part. And like, I'm not building a multi-part 15 millimeter figure. Like, sorry.
In metal.
I'm not doing it in anything. But having I mean, you do get some. One thing I was going to talk about too. This didn't fit anywhere else. It didn't fit here either. But don't neglect that you can use stuff that's like out of scale. Like if you want, space monsters and stuff, there's all kinds of like small D&D monsters make excellent like big monsters in 50 millimeter. Dollar store like snakes and lizards, you can repaint those. They make good. I'm super fond of using like Battletech and Heavy Gear figures as like walkers because they look really good next to 50 millimeter infantry. So you can like supplement out with stuff from I know people have taken like Tau drones and stuff. Ski says 40K and 15 millimeter definitely has some interest. Yeah, I've seen the Facebook group, and it's kind of interesting because I always took that to be like because for a while there wasn't really like quote 40K and 15 millimeter figures. Like you had to go find stuff that looked a little bit like, so people would use like laser burn figures. But now there's so much stuff that's like you can do pretty spot on, like little not Space Marines. Like Ski's made me some little not Space Marine dudes, and they don't exactly look like Space Marines, but they also like definitely Space Marines. They're very charming. They're very like retro looking. They're like super nice figures. But yeah, what I would be curious about is because how is C? I don't know how much of those guys like are, if it's like Old Hammer where they're mostly just building armies and painting them and they don't really play games, or if it's like people are actually playing games with them. Like I've done it a little bit for like Rogue Trader and it was fun, but
I think they're in a tough spot because most counterculture people in the hobby aren't really into 40K.
Well, yeah, so that's another thing where because I see a lot of people who would do projects like that where they're kind of showing off, just like it's a painting project and it's fun to do. But if you're already like out where you're okay picking out your own models and rules and everything, like for a lot of people they don't necessarily just want to then go back and like do it's like making your own Burger King sandwich. Like but I could be wrong. Wrong.
It's a great proof of concept though. It's like look how much better this is. Why did they not do this? But
and especially like like I know people have been impressed at seeing the new like Epic sprues with like how good those figures are.
I hate them.
You don't like them?
No, I bought some like dreadnoughts.
Yeah.
And they come in like 15 pieces.
Oh, God,
it's a dreadnought.
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to spend this effort to build this tiny little guy that could have been 1 or 2 pieces?
Yeah,
just give me 1 or 2 pieces then.
Yeah, like legs and like a little body you put on.
Yeah, I don't need to put on like 3 different pieces to make a leg.
Skis is saying a lot of people are actually playing 2nd edition, 3rd edition, or OPR. Well,
yeah.
So, 2nd edition 40K is like my favorite game ever. So those people are cool. The other ones should do something different. But yeah, so I guess that's kind of all my thoughts I have on 15s. It's something that I like feel really strongly about, but I think you're right that they're also like, in order for it to like blow up again, if it needs to, and like it's better for like everyone, like obviously if there's more stuff. So if it's gonna be big again in the same way that it was like 15 years ago, has it been that long?
Not quite. But
no, it's more like 10 years.
I think it petered about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was when I was still living in Oregon. So
8 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. God, time can go fuck itself. I am sick of time. That's what somebody needs to do something about that. Yeah, there are some either challenges that need to be overcome, or like the next way of doing things, which may be all like 3D printed and a new sort of. I think it's also just like a new vibe, because like for a long time now, the vibe for sci-fi minis has been heavily influenced by like the Blanchitzo and Inquisitor 28 and what is it called, Turnip and Sludge and all that stuff. Torben, if he's still in the chat, he will can probably talk about that, because I think he plays Sludge.
Oh, got to start the Trench Crusade and 15mm movement. Everyone's all gaga about Trench Crusade right now.
Yeah, I don't want to bag on it, because I've like spoken to Tuomas Pirinen at a convention like 1,000 years ago, and he was super nice. But I am just so not into weird war stuff. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I think it's terrible.
It's not my kind of weird war. I like some weird lore, but not that one.
I totally get why people are into it. I'm not saying people should be that ashamed. A little bit. You should be a little ashamed. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. But that's really more because, you peed on the carpet. There's nothing to do with the miniatures. It's just, when it comes to stuff like that, like, I would always just prefer playing, like, a historical game instead. Like, that's... I just don't have an interest for it. But if they're doing well, I saw they had, like, 40,000 members on their Facebook group or something. So people obviously, like, it caught people's attention.
It's all blowed up.
Yeah, and I saw people were like, I don't know how many people are playing it, but a lot of people were, like, painting the models. So at least they're buying it, which is good.
It's like Morkborg. It's hard to say.
Yeah, like how much of that is like art project versus like a game people want. Merc Trench 15. Torben, when you come over here to visit, you're not leaving, because I'm going to kill you and bury you in my yard. Or
collab and make Merc Trench 15, I think.
Yeah, we'll think about
Ivan Sorensen presents.
Some shite for all you assholes out there to buy. Click here to give me money. Yeah. It would probably sell too. That's the worst part.
Well, I guess you should promote yourself now.
Yeah,
let's talk up this Mystic space.
Yeah, let's do some shilling. Because I know Skis has been like jumping up and down, waiting, and I feel
keeping our view times up.
Yeah. You always put the good stuff at the end, right? That's Well. So the issue is, so I don't have too much like concrete stuff yet. But. Did we talk about this at all last time? I don't think we did.
You talked about last time. I don't know.
I don't know. I talked about a lot of stuff. I don't remember it.
So you promoted something.
Yeah. Well, just to recap it anyway. I think I might have talked about like the very vague basic idea, but Mystic Space is kind of going to be like, I don't want to say a new beginning, because that makes it sound like I'm like not going back to a bunch of stuff, but it is time for Nordic Weasel to have something new beyond Parsecs in the sci-fi space, because Parsecs is obviously like a Modifius thing now. And while they have like a billion ideas of stuff they want to do, and they are interested in a billion of my ideas, I still want to have something that's like mine, right? But I also wanted to do something that I haven't really done, and also is not what I usually do. Like, I've always been like, I get kind of itchy about like being typecast as, like the solo guy or the warband guy. So I wanted to do something that wasn't necessarily those things. Something that would be aimed at pick up and play with army list and all that good stuff. Aimed at being player versus player. Doesn't mean it can't later be a scenario game, or it can't later be a solo game or a warband game or any of that shit. It just means that's not the starting point. The starting point is that you make an army and I make an army, and then they fight each other with swords and lasers. Yay. Also something that will have like a specific setting. Like Parsecs has a setting, but it's also like 50% like roll your own. That's kind of the conceit, right? Like there's enough there if you want to just play it in the real setting, but there's like a lot of people also don't do that, and that's fine. That's how it's been intended. That's how it's been the thing. But this will be something that has like a specific world it takes place in, with specific people and units and factions and stuff. You also have to like roll your own minis, which would be great in 15 millimeter. See how it all comes together. So the idea of Mystic Space is that it takes place in a reasonably far future, because it's a sci-fi game. That's just kind of how you're supposed to do, unless you're Star Wars. It is not actually our future necessarily. It's a galaxy populated by humans that look and sound and talk like us. They'll all talk English because like that's what I'm writing the rule book in, I guess. But they're not necessarily like a realistic future of ours. It could be like a strange galaxy far away, but at different time kind of thing. But humans have scattered around the stars and have mostly broken out into the plan is for there to be 8 different factions, and each faction will kind of have like their own thing that they're worried about, their own things that they're kind of looking to do in life. Some of them have issues that have happened to them, and they are trying to get even. They have different motivations for like what the future will look like. Some of them will want like to progress through technology. Some of them are anti-technology. Some of them are like evil space nihilists. Not necessarily evil, but like they will all have different things, and they'll all come with like their own color schemes, so you can paint your armies. And these factions are now struggling for, against each other among the stars. And kind of the idea is that as humanity's exploded throughout the galaxy, you get kind of clusters of civilization where there's multiple star systems that are in range of each other. So in any given like sector or cluster, you might only have 3 or 4 factions that exist there. Those are just the guys who got there. They start building, or like a new colony was built and it declared for one of the factions, or it was absorbed or whatever. And so the idea is that if you play this game with like 3 of your friends and you guys all make armies and play together, the armies you paint is the armies that are in your cluster. Like that's your little story. So the apex or whatever might not exist in your little corner of the game world because none of you painted that army. But it's set up like all the factions like can get mad at each other and will fight each other. It's typical wargaming bloke. There are no at least the plan for now is there are no sentient sapient aliens. There is alien life throughout the galaxy. Wherever people have gone, they have found like critters, many of which are dangerous and unpleasant. But for whatever reason, humans are the only intelligent race other than cats.
Cat faction.
Yes.
15 millimeter.
Yes. I think Kurosan has that. There is space magic. I haven't nailed down yet the details of that, but as part of the explosion of the stars, humans also came across figured out how to make magic so people can cast spells. This is kind of a like a hero thing. So you'll have heroes who can cast spells on the battlefield, and zip around and do crazy things. So part of the game is going to be more, because I tend to always default to doing things that are very kind of gritty, down to earth, Vietnam in space kind of thing. So with this, it is also going to be a little more focused on just big things. Armies will have a lot of characters in them. In the defaults on army building, you will have a minimum of 3 heroes in your army. So alongside with at least 3 squads. So it's Ski is saying no anime cat girls. There will not be, much as I love putting anthropomorphic animals in games enough that people start speculating if I'm a furry. There will not be any anthropomorphic characters in this one. There may be some human uplift technology stuff, but it won't be animal people or stuff like that. But yes, so it'll be more heroic, a bit more big. The goal is in the rules, if I can get this, that a hero and a squad of infantry kind of are about even, but not necessarily in the same situation. Heroes will probably be worse in a shootout, and obviously better fighting with a space sword or whatever. Otherwise, mechanically, the goal is also to do a game that is, there'll be one or two like clever bits, obviously, but it will be fairly conventional. So alternating activations, probably. Fairly straightforward, like roll to hit, roll to kill, take morale check kind of thing. Cleaned up so it moves quickly, not like a stodgy game. But I wanted to do something that was fairly standard, I suppose. Because it is easier to translate things. If people have scenarios of things from other games, it's easier to translate them into a game that is fairly, I guess, standard. If you're playing a game where like not every unit gets to move every turn, that can be difficult if you're playing a scenario that requires army to like get from here to here, because that scenario assumed they were all going to move every turn, and they can't. So having a setup that is a little more conventional, and which then allows focusing on like all of these heroes with different abilities. They'll be different. Each of the factions will have their own traits. So you'll have a single army list you pick from with a lot of different units on it. You'll be able to customize it. But like all of the factions, at least initially, will use the same army list. So if you are playing the Fallen and you take a squad of light infantry, and I'm playing Eden's Path and I take a squad of light infantry, that's the same like light infantry squad with the same options for both of us. But your unit has a couple of specific traits for being Fallen that affects how they move and fight and operate. And mine will be a little different because they have, the traits for my faction. There's also going to be mercenary squads, which don't belong to a faction. That's the whole point of them. But they have their own faction rules for that type of squad. So if you bring in a squad of these guys, they have their own rules. So the idea is that everyone will have kind of, because I thought that would just be really cool. So if you have, like there's a APC in the army list, everyone will go out and like look for APC models because if you want one of those. But if you're building it for a specific faction, you might want to have a certain look to that that I don't want to have because that's not how I see that faction or the faction I'm playing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So be able to embrace, like, it's kind of like trying to thread the needle on like my dudes versus like it's also a specific setting with like specific things that exist.
Yeah.
And let people kind of. The other thing, just for the look of it, is that all vehicles will be walkers. There will be no like tanks or grav vehicles or stuff. Okay. There might be a walker with like wheel, like it has legs, but it has like little wheels or rollerblades or something, just because it would be cool. So you can do, but yeah, like it'll be just for the visual. Like that's like the most anime thing. It's gonna be that is all like giant robots or giant walkers. Just because it would look, and I love the look of like sci-fi infantry next to like walkers and stuff. That's like a really cool look. So that's kind of the idea and the vibe. I know a couple of people have been like eager for like more details. And
we're probably should tell us about these factions. I mean, it sounds like you got some. So
yeah. So the idea is these are all kind of in the basic like stages being worked out because they will each have like their own spells and things. So we have Eden's Path, which is essentially a space colony, like a colony ship, kind of like if you watched. Nobody has watched this because it's not available stateside, but Macross Frontier. They have colony ships out. They are searching. They're kind of crusaders / pilgrims, and they are basically like searching for like a new perfect world for them to. So they're kind of like they have kind of a focus on being like persistent and determined. We have Terra Hold, which are essentially they're kind of like Space Amish, where they reject sort of the excesses of modern technology. They think that will go to like terrible places. They have focused on like physical discipline, practicality, being very sort of tied to like their material like being and so on. We have the Fallen, who basically like tanks their world through exploitation and turning a polluted hellhole. So now they're out to find a place where they can chill and go live, but they are also looking to influence other factions to not do the same thing, because as far as they are concerned, like if nobody does anything about it, we will just poison all of the planets we go to. So which is that's probably the most like anime feeling faction. We have the Apex, who are looking at using technology and like cybernetics and so on to push on human evolution. So they're into like genetic engineering and stuff like that, and they want to sort of they're very like pro technology, but like technology in order to accelerate like human development. If this was an anime, they would definitely be like the villains at the end who want to turn on the galaxy unification machine or something. We have the Dead Wake, who have they are kind of the space nihilists. They have essentially concluded that humanity is probably a mistake and should not be allowed to spread throughout the galaxy because it'll end in some massive calamity. The idea I have in mind is that they've kind of done the calculations and concluded that if there's enough people among the stars, at some point a massive galactic war breaks out and it will actually like destroy everybody. So they're trying to like stop everyone from colonizing and spreading, which doesn't make them very well liked by others because you're just being a bunch of buzzkills. So they're the option that can kind of stand in for like any evil faction, although they have their own like motivation to it. We have the Verdant Hand, who split off from Deadwake. They are essentially, they figured out that they kind of drew the opposite conclusion of that, where drastic things will happen when humanity spreads out, but they believe that when you spread out throughout the galaxy, they will be able to harness things that they find among the stars and improve humans' like magical abilities and stuff like that. But they believe that somebody has to kind of guide that, and that should obviously be the people with the right color of uniforms. Mm-hmm. Then there's two more. We have the Orphans, who were basically caught in a conflict between those two. That means their planets aren't really a thing anymore. They are sort of unstable and probably going to fall apart or plunge into the sun. So they're kind of like galactic scavengers. And their prime motivation is to get revenge on the people who messed up their worlds and sort of set themselves up in some sort of stable. And finally, there's the Pathfinders. They are sort of the, like, they're not really the hippies, but they are kind of like they have a fairly secular outlook on things. They are trying to build, like, the balanced society among the stars and find their way to, like, how humanity is going to live among all of these groups and worlds and situations while, without blowing themselves up. So that kind of, the idea is, again, if this was an anime, this is, like, the protagonist characters faction. Where they're trying to balance all these things out and sort of, but of course, that also makes you come across as a massive buzzkill because it often puts them on a collision course with other factions that have more specific ideas about how things should work. And of course, all of these will also have like mundane things. They squabble over resources, planets, people get into fights with, like they're complex. The big thing is that none of them are meant to be mapped back to like modern day, like none of them are like space French or space Chinese or whatever. We will be mucking around with like coming up with something where we can take real languages and like modify them a little bit or put them through some ciphers, because you want to have like consistent naming conventions. Like characters from a particular faction should feel, their names and stuff should like fit together. But none of them are like the French in space or the Chinese or whatever. We want to avoid that. It also means that like they can look like whatever you want. So if you want one of these to like all look like Asian people, they could. But you could also have them all look just like different people because they're all from like planets. So, and they could be like, if you want to paint them all green, go for it, because they are not us in the future. They're just humans in this galaxy. Maybe it's like an alternate evolution of like what humanity could be like, or it could be anything. It's mystic. It's mystical. It's just weird. So that's kind of like the vibe so far. So it's very more like upbeat. It's kind of like, it's definitely going to be like space opera and not real hard sci-fi. But that's okay. Space opera is like what people want anyway. But yeah, kind of upbeat, kind of heroic. There will be some like darker elements, but it's not really meant to be like a really gritty, dark game. I'm sure people can turn it into that if they want. And there's a couple of factions in here who will lend themselves to that. But yeah,
not a waking nightmare.
Yeah, it's meant to be like, if you want that, you can come up with some stuff, but the default is like definitely a bit more just, yeah, it's something that will lend itself to like painting bright colors. And again, we just talked about like 15 millimeter benefiting from that. So, but it will also fit, obviously, like there's a lot of, in 28s now, especially with plastic kits, there's so many like not Imperial Guard figures, and there's stuff like the Stargrave guys and stuff like that.
Still a game called Infinity.
Yeah, Infinity Minis will be like perfectly suited. You know, my like platonic ideal for like the look of things would be like 15 millimeter Infinity style figures, and then next like heavy gear like walkers.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of like the vibe. So
I'm just gonna say a quick hello to Greg. Good to see you.
Hey Greg.
And got a little question for you.
Hey.
Do you have an artist?
I do not have an artist yet. I do want to get what I'm hoping to do is get like a full color cover art to really like dazzle, and then like black and white interior art. Although we may do model photography instead, depending on. But yeah, no, I don't have an artist. Like, if anyone, here's the problem. Last time I like asked on, before I deleted my Twitter, when I asked on Twitter for an artist, I got literally like 100 DMs from people, none of which had actually like read what it was I was asking for. So I will definitely like be looking for an artist, probably somebody in the community who's sort of like, so I just don't have to vet like that many people. Holy shit, it was wild. I do have like, I have some contacts from a ways back. But yeah, there will be, I'm also, there's some questions about how we're gonna, like, it'll be I want to embrace this as a high quality indie game. So I want to embrace things like we'll be able to, you know, because it's meant for pickup games. So if it turns out that we screwed up and like the points values are off, or when the units is like not quite right, or a spell is too good or something, that we can take people's feedback and go in and like tweak it, but like a little bit. I think people get frustrated with like when Games Workshop does this, because they tend to like do like a huge shift. Yeah. Because they only update it like, you know, twice a year or whatever. Like there's kind of like a schedule to it. But what we can do is look at, you know, if everyone says like this weapon is like too powerful, we can go in and change like one little piece. So we change like the point value a little, or we change the range or whatever, or we change one of the abilities a little bit, and then like see, is it still like, if people stop moaning about it, then it's probably okay now. Or if they still complain, we go in and change like another piece of it. So, but be able to just embrace the fact that if we are an indie game and we are publishing in PDF, then there's no reason that we can't like be responsible to players or responsive. So when people are providing feedback, we can just integrate it. Like if everyone is asking about like how morale works, if they don't understand it, then we can go back and rewrite that section. So put it out like it's an indie. It's kind of I was joking around that is kind of indie Warhammer, in that it's taking some of the things that a Warhammer like format does, but like approaching it as an indie game. That's the plan anyway. That's very like grand and ambitious, right? Well,
Living Rulebook is definitely very Nordic Weasel. So
yeah, absolutely, and being able to do it from the ground up.
Yeah, I don't know if you know about Battlefront. So for Flames of War and Team Yankee, they started to roll out dynamic point values. So you can play with either the original point values that they have in the books, the official ones, or the alternate official ones are you go into the website and it tells you all the readjusted point values. So if everyone found that the anti-aircraft weapons were way too cheap, basically they adjusted the point values to be more expensive, and everyone works off of that now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we were going to do that for Tactics as well, but so far there hasn't been enough feedback where people are complaining about the points values. But that was kind of the idea. So that if you bought the book and had the printed book,
so the stats never change, just the points values.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a good idea. I think what I want to do is just make the change like in the book directly. Skis is asking if there's plan for a printed book. I'm gonna say not initially. I know everyone like wants printed Weasel stuff, but for this, I really want to like
POD.
Yeah, I think what we could probably do is if updates happen on like a schedule, so like each month it's updated with anything that's come in, then people can send it to like get printed. But I want to try, like you guys know that I've always tried to like come up with ideas and try new things, and I want to like really lean into this idea, like what is the benefit of playing a war game that exists on the internet, you know? So that's one of the things. And it could also be, you know, like if this catches on enough that people like make fan art or stuff, like stuff could make it into the book and they could be credited and stuff. Just something that because I think the advantage of like indie games is that like people like feeling like they have a connection to the game, or they have a connection to the person who made it. Like there's both, you can feel as specific person made it, because like their personality comes through, but you can also like be in contact with it in a way that you can't with like Warhammer or BattleTech, because those games are just big. You can be in contact with the community or all this stuff, but you can't really like that feeling of like I emailed the author and they went in and fixed something because I told them that, like, I noticed it was broken, or
I showed up to his live streams every single time and I told him my opinion every single time and he changed it.
Yes, or they ignored all of it. But now I know that they don't want it.
Well, you gotta try. Just show up to every single stream and see.
Yeah, you gotta be persistent. So yeah, I want to lean into like that idea, like what it means to be an indie, a game that exists on the internet, and see. But again, it depends. If it turns out that like the changes, because after a while, like the number of changes would like hopefully drop pretty fast, as most things kind of get leveled out, and then maybe that's the point where you look at a POD book and like get it edited up nice, and probably at that point, you swap. If we do miniature photography, and then you swap it for like full interior art or something, because then you can kickstart it for like a nice glossy copy.
Well, if you have nice art, then you can have nice 3D people coming in making little miniatures for your game.
Yeah, that is. I've heard that's a thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's a lot of like trying new things, and also in some ways like old ideas and thoughts coming to a point and coming to a conclusion. So I'm really excited about it, and I think that's why like a couple of people have like really caught on that, because like excitement is like infectious and it's something just different. I think that's the difference too. I was joking with Torben that it was funny that when I told people what it was going to be, everyone like was excited to learn more about it, and they were excited what it was going to be, and people started speculating on it. Whereas if I had come out and just asked people what they wanted, everyone would just have said like 5 parsecs but cowboys. Usually if you don't tell people like there's a whole different thing you could have, you're just inclined to say like the same thing but like +1, or like a little different, B instead of C.
Is that the most requested, 5 parsecs but cowboys?
No, the most requested is either horses in 5 leagues, not even a game, just fucking horses, or anything with ships and or spaceships, or zombies. And at this point, I think I've made it clear I don't want to write zombies. If people stop, but yeah, or like anything that's a city builder. That I actually do want to do, but that's like a long-term thing. But yeah, anything where you got to like build a base, people will be like super excited about. That's like a common one.
Staying ships.
But yeah, but yeah, like if you just ask people, they will always tell you like a variation of what they already got, because they know what that is and that's like what they're excited about. But if you just tell them this is the next thing, people will start like, oh, okay, like now that that's the thing we know we could have, now I want it. So this is like, it's not like people aren't being bad or dumb or anything. It's just how psychology works. I do it too. So, but that's why indie gaming is exciting, because you get to see people who can do something different or can take a chance or go outside the box a little bit, in a way that you don't always get elsewhere.
5 canters from Equestria someday.
I might do that one. Also, it will just be fun to be able to like go put a bunch of like references and homages. I think there's still like references in both leagues and parsecs that people haven't like found yet.
Ooh.
So
Easter eggs.
Yeah, we do like a scavenger hunt for them. So, but yeah, there'll be a bunch of other things that we'll get to reference and make. That's a cool thing. When I was a kid, you read the book Warhammer and D&D and stuff, and they got to like reference all the shit they were into. So now, I get to do the same thing, like paid back to the things I enjoyed. A different generation of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of Mystic Space as it exists now. So there's more to it because like I have started writing the rule book, but we'll talk about like the rules specifically. Like I don't know, that's really more like blog post material. Talking about rules like in a live stream is not real exciting, I guess.
I can try to stay awake, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I might have to like start shouting as you fall asleep. So that stuff that can be discovered on the blog instead. But if people have questions about it, they are certainly welcome to email me. And otherwise, I'll start sharing more as we're hoping to get some write-ups, so sample write-ups. Like the idea is each faction will have like a page or so of just background information in the book. So we're going to start writing some of those up after Thanksgiving, and people can start seeing some of the stuff. Probably 30 or so pages of background in the book, and then I don't know what the total size will be, but we want to be enough of it that it's cool for people who want to dig into it, but not like so much that it's like a grind to, you have to pass an exam before you can play this stupid game.
I like the even like the old leagues, the second edition, where stories were just spread throughout. I always like that style of fluff where I don't have to read like pages and pages of fluff. It just shows up every once in a while.
Yeah, so there'll definitely be some of that because those are really fun to write, where you get to write like little in person, so we'll definitely have some of those. And like realistically, there'll be people who just like look at some of it and then like they pick an army that has the coolest rule and then they build that. They don't give a shit. So that's always been the case. Like there is dudes playing 40K who don't know what a Horus Heresy is or why they should care about it. So it'll be, but like part of this will be that I want it to be like a specific real thing. So again, it's just like doing something different this time. And then in the future it'll be a platform to build on. So if people want a like warband RPG kind of game, we can do that. If they want
spaceship battles, you got to come to Mystic Space.
Yeah, it'll be mystical spaceships, and nobody does that. So see what I'm doing for you people. Maybe there'll even be a stupid fucking horse.
Just one.
Yeah, just one. They're all fighting for it. It's you can't ride it. It's like on a little enclosure in the world, but everyone will fight around it. But yeah, that's about. I guess we're coming up in like an hour and a half because I've been fucking rambling.
Yeah, definitely. Well, both coming up an hour and a half, a bit of rambling, but focused. Think people got the good idea what's going on.
Focused-ish. So, but yeah, so that's. I guess we could also start telling people. If people have like ideas for topics they would like us to talk about related to tabletop miniatures gaming,
we would consider. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we're dumb and opinionated, so we can always talk. But if you have something you really think would be fun for us specifically to talk about, we would be happy to consider that. So no promises, but so leave a comment on the web zone or send an email to someplace. It doesn't have to be us. You can send emails to anybody. That's beautiful.
I'd say comments probably best.
Yeah, I think so.
Contact us or email Joseph McCullough and send them all your requests for us.
Yeah,
just confuse them. What? Who?
Yeah, I think both methods work equally well and are equally likely to succeed. Yeah, I guess that's it for me for the evening. Do you have any closing words?
No, I do not. No, just when it comes to painting 15 millimeter, just remember, go light. You can use contrast. You can just dry brush it all and add a couple of highlights. Just make sure to work on that basing. That's the most important part.
Don't slum it on the basing. Put a little effort. And besides, if you're only painting like one little dude, you have a lot of time you could spend on that base. So there's really no excuse.
Just make it pop.
Yeah, it'll like brighten up the whole mini as well. So look way cooler. And always make sure that if your terrain is all like concrete and asphalt, give them green grass bases. That looks great.
That's right. Add a little cheer to the battlefield.
All right. Well, in that case, I guess it's time to like do the heart. Does it work? No, it didn't. I have to do it like this.
Oh, Yay! There we go. Yay! Hearts.
You can't do it with that's stupid. I guess it doesn't look like a heart. It looks like a heart to me. Mark Zuckerberg or whoever made this program.
I blame Jobs.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
Okay. Everyone, take care, guys.
Have a great night.
This episode of Bad Internet Friends was streamed live on YouTube and Twitch. There is a North American-friendly live stream every second Wednesday of the month and a European-friendly live stream every fourth Monday of the month.